All right, everyone, good afternoon and welcome to this month's Conversations with AG Ford. Here with us, as always, we have Attorney General Ford.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is great to be with you again. I am Aaron Ford, your Attorney General, and honored to have with me today for the fifth installment of our monthly town hall discussion in my office is having called Conversations with AG Ford. Many of you may know who I am, but what you may not know is what we all do here at the Attorney General's office and how we're working hard to help and protect Nevadans. On my second day in office, I called every member of my team together for a meeting and I talked to them about my priorities, which I like to call the 5 C's. These are our constitutional rights: criminal justice and reform, consumer protection, client service, and community engagement. And I want everyone here with us to know that these C's are all about you. They're what my office uses to prioritize the ways in which we serve each of you and our state. And they're why we're here today having this conversation to focus on one of my C's, which is community engagement. On the last Wednesday of every month, I'll be introducing you to different members of what I call the AG family. You will have the opportunity to learn more about what we do and ask questions about our services. Last month we had to cancel, my apologies, but the month before that, we heard from investigators within my insurance fraud unit. This week I have with me Senior Deputy Attorney General Alyssa Engler, Criminal Investigator Gina Lovera, and Criminal Investigator Dave Monroe, and they're going to be discussing investigation and recovery of missing children. The Nevada Clearinghouse for Missing and Exploited Children is under the direction of the Nevada State Children's Advocate. One of our office's missions is to ensure that missing children are reunited with their families and to foster reunification and family stability by providing information to these parents, children, and children's advocates about the law, court proceedings, court processes, research, and news that pertains to missing children. The good work that comes out of this program could not have been made possible if it was not for Alyssa, Gina, and Dave, all of whom work to decrease the risk of child abductions by increasing awareness of the problem in our communities and by assisting other agencies in enforcing civil orders for the return of abducted children and in conducting public awareness campaigns and by educating parents and children about ways to reduce the risk of abduction, exploitation, and abuse of our children. Like I said earlier, we're holding a session every month, and in the future, you'll hear from me talk about more divisions in my office. Remember to tune in the last Wednesday of every month so that we can continue the conversation. And again, thank you so much for being with us today. Teresa, back to you.
Thanks, AG. First, Alyssa, I want to start off with you. Not only are you a senior attorney in our office, but you also serve the role as children's advocate. Could you explain to us what is a children's advocate?
Absolutely. So the Children's Advocate advises and represents the Nevada Clearinghouse on all matters that concern missing and exploited children. In this role, I advocate for the best interests of missing and exploited children in front of any public or private body. That includes recommending legislation and prosecuting crimes that involve the exploitation of children.
And what kind of cases or what types of cases does our office investigate or prosecute involving missing children?
From a prosecution standpoint, we investigate prosecute several different types of crimes. We assist local law enforcement in the prosecution of parental abduction cases, which you can find under Nevada Revised Statute 200-359. That's the detention, concealment, and removal of a child. We also assist in the prosecution of sex trafficking of minor cases that have a statewide nexus. So that would be cases that may involve the unfortunate trafficking of an individual through the entire state. As far as investigation, I'll turn it over to Dave and Gina. They can inform us as to what we do on investigation.
So on the investigation level, or is that questions that are going to come later? Just our means of investigation?
Just the types of cases that our office investigates generally.
Well, like Alyssa said, we spend all our time, and our main mission is children brought to Nevada from other states that are concealed within the state of Nevada. We also assist local law enforcement on children concealed by a taking parent or someone someone else in the family within the state of Nevada. We do that more on a case-by-case basis, as we don't have the resources to take on all these cases, but we do try and assist whenever we're free or whenever somebody reaches out to us for help.
And as we're talking about cases involving missing children, contrary to what we might see on a lot of TV shows or movies, it's not usually cases of stranger abduction. Instead, more often what we see is either parental abduction or familial abduction. And so, Alyssa, maybe you could walk us through, at what point does a parent taking a child become a criminal act, or at what point would our office be involved?
Sure. Obviously, every case is different, but a typical parental abduction case occurs when a child has been detained or concealed for at least 30 days. If a parent takes a child for an extra weekend or a day or two beyond what their court order might state, that isn't going to rise to a criminal charge. Of course, that could certainly be something that would warrant makeup time in family court, and they can file, the appropriate paperwork in family court to address that. But as far as criminal charges, we're not looking at a case until really there's been a detain or conceal for longer than 30 days. Before criminal charges would be pursued, though, the left behind parent would have to go back to family court and obtain new court orders that reflect the fact that there is a violation of the court orders and obtain what's called a pickup order or a warrant to take physical custody of the child. Once they have that paperwork, they can provide that to their local law enforcement agency, whether in the south that would be Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, Henderson Police Department, North Las Vegas, in the north, any of the Elko Police Department, Washoe Sheriff's Office, or Reno PD. And then they can begin an investigation into whether or not there is a detention and concealment. If the law enforcement agency determines that there is a probable cause for criminal charges, they would submit it to our office for review and potential prosecution.
So, Teresa, I'm going to jump in real quickly. You may already have this question to be asked, but a lot of people don't know that I used to do pro bono work in child abduction cases. Actually, I did it in the international child abduction arena under the Hague Convention, and I had two cases. One was a young lady whose ex-husband took the kids to Mexico, and another was a case involving children who were brought here, but the order was in Switzerland. And so I thought maybe I'd chunk a trick question out there, or a new question out there to Alyssa and our investigators. What about international child abduction cases? Do we get involved in those? And if not, who does? And if we do, talk to us a little bit about that.
So we do get involved in a few international abduction cases. It can come on various different levels. We've had cases where children have been brought from other countries and are located here, and Dave and Gina have assisted with potentially locating those individuals. Additionally, we do have cases here on the local level where they are Nevada children who have been taken by a parent or a family member out of the country. And in those situations, the only recourse that we have to recover those children from our office is to file criminal charges either for the detention and concealment or potentially kidnapping, depending on the severity of the charges. And once the criminal charges are filed and a warrant's issued, then we can work with the State Department or Interpol to try to put appropriate notices out to hopefully apprehend and recover the children. They are extremely difficult cases, though, and unfortunately, the recovery level in those cases is not great.
And you mentioned working with local law enforcement agencies on some of these kinds of cases. And so obviously not all disputes involving either custody or guardianship or Nevada children being taken across state lines would go through our office. When does our office get involved? And then if it's not a case that falls under our office's jurisdiction, how does our office work with local law enforcement and district attorneys across the state?
Sure. So from a prosecution standpoint, as I mentioned earlier, we do prosecute parental abduction cases, but typically those cases involve a missing Nevada child. And so the primary jurisdiction for investigation purposes on those cases would be the local law enforcement agency. So we wouldn't get involved in the case until it becomes a potential prosecution. On occasion, we will assist local law enforcement if necessary. As far as stranger abduction cases, which do happen on very slim occasions, but if those do happen, that is a local law enforcement investigated case and a local DA prosecuted case, just for clarification on that. We do primarily lead investigation on some cases, and I think Dave and Gina can probably better answer, what we do as far as investigation.
And so to clarify, so for the cases where we are investigating children that are taken from other states and then concealed in Nevada, that's where our investigators would get involved?
Yes, that's correct.
And Dave and Gina, do you want to walk us through what that looks like?
Yeah, if I could just clarify one thing that Alyssa said, that it's a real confusing issue, but we don't actually assist the DA's office on the prosecution stuff. We will assist local law enforcement in investigations that are local. Our primary is kids brought to Nevada from other states, but we don't assist the DA's office. Due to a long-standing practice, all cases for prosecution go through the Attorney General's office. The Clark County DA's office does not prosecute these cases, as has not for a number of years. So I think that's important to probably put out to the public. So that's why they come through the AG's office and go through our DAGs to prosecute a crime that otherwise wouldn't get prosecuted in this county. And it's a felony, so it'd just be a crime that it basically would leave judges' orders unenforceable if nobody was prosecuting this crime.
And what does the investigation process look like for you guys when you're working on trying to recover missing children who are taken from other states and then are here in Nevada? How do you guys get notified? How does your investigation process work? As far as how they come to us from parents, attorneys, CPS, other law enforcement. They're typically referred via other law enforcement, family court, or through the department referral process directly. If that's the only answer you're looking for as far as that. I tried to answer your questions in order. So. Yep. Okay. And so, Alyssa, as we're looking at these cases that you work on involving missing children, what kind of resources are available, or what other groups or clearinghouses do you work with in order to get information and then work on the actual recovery of the child?
Sure. So there's a lot of great resources out there. On the local level, Nevada Child Seekers is a nonprofit organization based out of Las Vegas, and they do great work assisting families and law enforcement in the location of missing children. And it can be missing children that are from Nevada, or missing children that might be currently here in Nevada. So they do a really great job. You've probably seen their posts or advertisements, but they really get involved in the community, and they're a really great resource locally. On the national level, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is the nation's nonprofit clearinghouse. So the AG's office houses the Nevada Clearinghouse. National Center is the nation's clearinghouse, and they're also the comprehensive reporting center. So they have a 24-hour hotline that will do the intake process for all missing and exploited children. So they'll take any report of a missing child, and those reports can be made by a family member, law enforcement, social workers, child protective services. Anyone can make reports to NCMEC. So they're a really great resource. Additionally, their website has an abundance of resources and information on a wide range of topics. They have videos that parents can watch with their kids about the importance of protecting themselves on the internet, which has become a really big issue over the last decade. So there's just a lot of really great resources. I encourage people to check that out.
Yeah, and in fact, the National Center is where I used to get my pro bono cases from. These are international child abduction cases under the Hague Convention, as I've indicated. So we have any lawyers watching now who are interested in pro bono civil work, you might want to check out the National Center's website for that as well.
Yeah, NCMEC actually did a really great presentation in our office about 2 years ago, and it was really, really interesting to see all the resources they have and the great work they're doing too. So it's great that we get to partner with them on these cases. Dave and Gina, do you know how many cases of assisted recovery of missing children does our office usually handle per year?
Yeah. So as far as numbers, the clearest we can narrow it down, hundreds of people reach out to our office for assistance each year. Not all of them become cases. Some people need help with direction. Some need more direct assistance. Some simply need to have someone listen, as oftentimes they have been to numerous locations, local agencies, and prior to arriving at the AG's office. What's happened in the last couple years is family court and even an agency like Metro has gotten good about steering cases of these parents to us just through word of mouth and through the work that we've done. So we've developed a really good relationship that way. When I started, it wasn't that way. People would often go to 4 or 5 different places and nobody would give them an answer. And by the time they got to us, they were in tears. So in addition, we don't try to ever let anyone leave without a plan, either to get, whether it's obtaining court orders, file a report with the local agency. Often they thank us and tell us that we're the first ones to provide any kind of help and useful information. So we try to always stick to that.
That's great. Do you guys have any recovery stories that you guys can share with us of kids that you've recovered recently?
We've had about 16 recoveries this year. All the circumstances have been very different. Some of the kids have been like gone for 3 years from the parents, but some of them still are being adjudicated, so we really don't want to go into too many details, but we've made some parents very happy.
That's always really great to hear. And Alyssa, I know you have a lot of competition in our office. We have quite a few that have identified themselves as prosecutors with a heart. And I'm going to say that you probably take the cake on that though. But you mentioned that criminal charges aren't really the objective and it's not that common. And so really, what's the primary goal here? Obviously, it's not to put parents in prison. That's not the goal. But could you tell us what the goal is here?
Yeah, so that's never my goal, is to have to put parents in prison. I don't take pride in doing that. It is a felony charge for parental concealment, but the ultimate goal, and I think Dave and Gina would speak to this too on the investigative side, is to really get the parties to either resolve the issue either personally or through the family courts where these disputes are supposed to be handled. So we really try to strive to make sure that happens. And when I generally file criminal charges, it's because every aspect of the civil side of it has been exhausted, and the last resource is criminal charges. And so that's really, I really focus on that as a last resort.
That's really fantastic. We really appreciate every month getting to learn from a different division in our office. And it's really great to hear about all of the incredible work that you guys do, both for families in our state and families outside of our state. And we always really enjoy hearing about that. AG?
I just want to say thank you so much for all the hard work that you all do. And it's great to be able to hear from such an integral and important part of our office. You guys do God's work. to be sure. Prosecutors and investigators with the heart, with the primary goal of, as Alyssa has indicated, if I paraphrase, is reunifying the child with the parent and letting the parents work things out amicably, hopefully. Listen, everybody who's joined in, we're so happy that you're able to join us this week. Sorry we weren't able to make it last month, but next month we'll be back. So tune in on the last Wednesday of next month, and we'll be happy to have additional conversations with AG Ford. And with that, thank you so much. Everyone have a great afternoon.
Thank you.